One day, I just sat down on my PC and opened up Figma. And I was thinking, what should I make? Then I got the bright idea of making a functioning iOS keyboard. Why? Well, since variables came, it was possible and it will look cool. We can think about the use case later. So I started by going to the community page and getting the Apple Design Resources file for iPadOS and iOS 17, which Apple released officially themselves. I copied the keyboard from that file and pasted it on my own for reference, and I started by copying the key for the letter Q and designing the tap state for it. By the way, hot tip, since I'm on Windows, I don't have the font SF Pro. So instead, just use the font Enter. They're pretty similar. They're not the same, I know, but to an untrained eye, they look the same. So I make the press state for the key, which is like the bigger key on top when you're tapping on the key. And I use a few images to reference it. Then I select both of them, make a component set, and I prototype the default key to change the press state while pressing. Then I copy the whole component 25 times more because 26 letters of the English alphabet, and I just start changing the letters one by one. I'm not gonna have to change it again and again, right? I also make the variables for all the letters, which will be useful, and then I start assigning them to the letters of the keys, which I'm not so sure about will be useful. Now this would be cool if I can show the keyboard actually working, right? Not just typing like I want a message to be written. So let's try to make the iMessage text box. So again, I'm going to use a reference and make the text box. Now the default state is with a placeholder text and is inactive. I want it to be active when I tap on it. So I'll make another copy of it and change the right side button to a blue send button and the text to be black. Let's make them both a component set and prototype it to on tap, changing the variant to the active one. Now let's put all the keys in an auto layout and make it look like an actual keyboard. Put the text box on top of the keyboard, and in the preview section, let's see if it's working or not, whatever we did till now, to feel that we actually are accomplishing something and this won't be completely useless later on. Now once that is done, let's work on the modifier keys. So that is basically your shift key, changing the keyboard key, space, delete, and return. So let's start with the space key, and I'm gonna make a press state for the space key too. Now it's just going to be a slight color change. You don't need to have space on the top written big and bold. That is not necessary. So I make a space variable, which is nothing but just a space. Now to actually change the message that we're typing, we would also need the message variable. So I write a message variable, assign it a default value of iMessage, which will be our placeholder text, assign that variable to the text inside of the text box. Then I very intentionally decide to be lazy, and I won't be making the shift, the change keyboard key, and the error return key, but this file is going to be available on my Figma community page, so feel free to add that if you want. So as soon as we tap on the text box, we want the text box to change state to active, but we also want the placeholder text to be blank so that we can start writing our message. So to do that, we need another variable which is going to be called blank, and guess what? It'll be blank. Then choose the text box and go to the prototype tab. In the interactions, you'll see the tap interaction, which changes the mode to the active mode. Inside that, add a set variable action, which sets the message variable is equal to blank. So now to actually write a message, what you need to do is choose one of the keys, go to the prototype tab, add an interaction, and on tap, set variable message is equal to message plus the letter you're choosing, in this case Q. And wait, it doesn't work. Well, alright, let's try again, and it is still not working. What if I go back to the base component itself, and on touchdown it would change the state from the default to the press state, but at the same time it'll add the letter to the message. And since now on touchdown it changes state, we want it to go back on touch up, basically when you lift your finger. So you choose the press state, bring it back, make it touch up, and it just changes variant. That's it. So now let's try it. Oh, it is working. Now we just have to do it 25 more times. So anyways, we do the same thing. On touchdown, default to pressed, set variable message is equal to message plus whatever the letter you're making it for, and then on the press state, touch up, going back to the default state. So for some reason the space wasn't working, it wasn't adding a space. I tried changing it to a dash, an underscore, it still wasn't adding. And for some reason as soon as I removed the press state, it started working. So in this file, there's no press state for the spacebar. Now to actually send the message, you need the message too, right? So make another variable called sent message. So put it in an auto layout, make the background color blue, and add the little tail to the message, which shows it that it's from your side. Add it to the auto layout, and now to make it actually stay in the bottom right corner, make it absolute and set the constraints to right and bottom. Once you're done with that, put the message in front of the text box and make the opacity 0. Copy the whole frame, put the message in its place where it's supposed to be, and make the opacity 100%. Now go back to the component of the text box itself and go to the prototype tab, and on the send button, prototype it to go to the next frame where the message is visible, and set it to auto animate so you can see the message going out like that. Now when you tap to send the message, you see that the message is still there on the text box. So on tap, you also want to make the message is equal to blank again so you can send the message again. But when you do that, the send message also becomes blank, and now that is a problem. So to fix that, assign the text inside of the blue message bubble to be the send message variable. And now on tap, now you have set it to change from the initial frame to where the message is visible, send the message to be blank. But in between that, so before you set the message to be blank, you need to make sure that you set variable send message is equal to message. Before message goes to blank, your send message becomes the message, and then your message becomes blank. I know it might sound a bit complicated. It isn't. Just take the file and see it for yourself. It's pretty easy. So there you go. You have a fully functioning iOS keyboard inside Figma. Not fully functioning, but you know what I mean. So now, was it fun doing it? Not exactly. Did it take too much time? Yes, it did. But, do you feel accomplished doing this? And is it useful? No, absolutely not. So Figma is not made for this type of prototyping. It's really good now with variables and all this, like advanced prototyping, conditional. It's really good, but there are just much better tools out there. Like you can go to Protopy, you can go to Principle, and they are so much more robust than this. Just use the plugin Figma to Protopy and just download Protopy, open them both at the same time, select all your frames, and just use the plugin to send it to Protopy and do everything in Protopy. It's so much more easier there. Like I did a video where I made the owner passport opening animation in Protopy by importing designs from Figma, and it was so easy and so intuitive. Like Protopy is made for prototyping first. Figma is really good for making the designs, and it is by far the best UI UX design tool I've ever used. But it's just not that robust for prototyping. Protopy has its own inbuilt keyboard system, and you can use it by making an input field inside of the frame. The input field is basically a text box, and you can click on it, and you can choose to trigger the keyboard when you click on it. It's that simple, and you click out of it, the keyboard goes away. It's really simple, and they have so much more amazing prototyping features than Figma has right now. Figma might have it in the future, and the prototyping section might become something completely different, like the dev mode, but it is not right now, so just use Protopy instead. But if you still want to use the keyboard I made, it's available on my Figma community page. And hope you liked the video, and don't forget to change the state of the subscribe button and like this video, and see you in the next one.